Hey guys, it's Taven Woody with ArcticInsider. Right now I'm with Wyatt Hooper, one of our Iron Dog racers from the 2025 season. Just kind of winged it into the season, not really expecting much. Just walk us through, give a little bit of introduction to our fellow fans out here.
Yeah, me and Adam, we just kind of had a idea that we wanted to go race Iron Dog. It was kind of been like a bucket list item of ours. Like, let's just see if we can do it. And our plan was like, if we can get sleds, we will get sleds, and then we'll wait a year, try to make a plan, and go and do it. And come to find out, we got the sleds, and we were pretty excited about it. And Adam's like, well, maybe we should just do the trail class. And I'm like, yeah, we could, but if we're going to go through all the effort of going to Alaska, we might as well just enter in the pro. And so that's what we did. We entered in pro, basically not knowing anything about the Catalyst chassis or racing cross country to that level. Adam's never raced cross country at all, and I've only raced like 2 races in 2022. So it was really winging it, and we just reached out to anybody we could to get any information about Iron Dog. And if anybody's looked into trying to do Iron Dog, it's come to find out not very easy. You just run into walls, just wall after wall after wall on like information, like where do you stay, like how do you stay, like yeah, it's over 7 days, but there's like, it's not like you just go on Google and pick a lodge like each day and kind of organize it. So we went through a lot of battles there, just getting the organizing of just getting up there and getting that figured out. And I think we probably did it the hard way, hiring a friend of ours to haul the things up there and drive them. But we didn't want to take the risk of like a shipping company, because we're like, we know if they're on our truck, like they're gonna make it there. So that was like kind of the biggest hurdles, was just getting the organization of even just getting there, let alone making sure the sleds are going to work or what we need to do with the sleds.
And theoretically, you guys were new meat. You guys were completely new to the situation, didn't know anybody up there. Coming from last year to this year, did you build those relationships to make it a little bit easier for this upcoming season?
Yeah, for sure. Just the racers in general are all willing to help. Like every racer up there, like if you have a question, they're willing to help you. And we got to meet people up there in Alaska throughout the villages that we are in contact with still. So it's easier to get bookings, easier to just line up and know where we're going and where we're trying to stay. Like I had a pretty good game plan from just reaching out to people and asking questions and getting our bookings pretty much dialed in. But if you have like one problem and you don't make a booking, you're like on your own. You're like stuck in a village at a little gas stop, and you're like, if you're stuck there overnight waiting for parts, like you just got to find someone, just find somewhere to stay. And we really found that out. And it was fun though. It really a raw experience, you know.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you guys are flying by the seat of your pants, and like going into it, the conditions are rough. It was super cold in a couple of days, but also there was no snow. You looked like a couple of times you guys were not on base, didn't even look like trails. You guys were in the middle of a field in a way.
So Alaska's interesting. I come to find out, like I feel like people think of Alaska like, oh, there's a bunch of snow all the time, which I think there is. I guess I'm not sure. I've only been there once, and the time I went, there was no snow. They say like Big Lake, Alaska, where it starts, there's supposed to be like 10 feet usually, and there was nothing. You couldn't even go like trail ride out of the shed, you know. So like we started the race on the river, and it was like, you know, around the river area, around Big Lake area, there's probably maybe like a foot of snow. So like basically a bad winter here. So it's like we're riding a lot of bare ice stuff. So we ran into a lot of like heating issues on the bare ice, because there was probably, you know, 60-ish miles of just shiny ice. So we had scratches. So we were able to figure that out pre-running days prior. So that was no big deal. But then, yeah, the burn area, like everyone's like, oh yeah, burn area is low snow. But that week before the race, everyone's like, no, the burn area has no snow. There's none. And we're like, well, what are we going to do? I'm like, it's too late now. You know, we're just going to have to just go into it and see what happens. We don't know. So yeah, we got into a section. That burn area was like 60 miles of the race course that was pretty much just bare dirt. You know, no ice chips or nothing where you could like, we just would take our little shovels. As soon as we'd run these things up to like 230 degrees, just to the point where they weren't pushing coolant. And we would just stop and just take the shovel and any ice chips and just open the side panel and just throw them right on the motor. I mean, 230 degrees to ice, and then let them cool down. And it seemed like we come to find out if like you burp the throttle, like turn the water pump more, and it seemed like it stayed more cool. But ultimately, they were just getting hot.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are asking, is how do you keep them cool? So it's definitely interesting to come to find out that that's how you guys did it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of teams were maybe pushing faster through it, because it didn't seem like it mattered on how fast the sled was going and how it stayed cool. It was just like a time thing. So say it was like takes 10 minutes to get hot. If you could go further in 10 minutes, great. The speed and like the amount you abuse the sled, I don't think it mattered. It was just like a time deal.
And then again with the conditions, there was a point where you went across a frozen piece of ocean and like this little nook through there. Can you walk us through a little bit about how that was?
Oh yeah, I mean there's lots of ocean. Like once you get up by Nome, there's lots of ocean, and it's like incredible views. Like there was a section where you could take the inland trail or you could take a coastline, and we decided to take the coastline because it seemed like all the inland stuff was pretty rough. So yeah, I mean you get on these cliff edges, they're huge. I mean the huge cliffs, you're like weaving between these ice heaves. It's beautiful, and the race gatekeeps like a lot of them views. Like if you wanted them views, you need to go do it the race. So it's pretty impressive. It's pretty cool.
And then with the conditions themselves, of course, there's no snow. It's not going to be necessarily, I mean, even with snow, it gets rough. But even with like riding on dirt, how was that? How were you able to kind of like pace yourself to get through the race as well?
Well, so everyone, like, it seems like last year was really based around like everybody knows it because of like the burn area and like the dirt. Like, okay, yeah, there was dirt on the course, but it was only 60 miles. The rest of the course was covered with snow. It was just that section on the backside of the mountains was dirt. But yeah, it was like, it was tough to like understand like, okay, we have to go 60-ish miles on dirt. What's it going to take? And we just come to figure out we just have to do it. Like there's no good way, there's no bad way. It's just the way, and it's just to get through it. Yeah,
the conditions, just kind of just beating your body up and just having to live with it throughout 60
miles.
Yeah, doesn't sound ultimate, but I mean, one of the things that you kind of got to do to do it. So.
And it's like, it gets to the point like, it's like rooted like a four-wheeler trail, and then it's like these little tussocks, like little like, I don't know, they're called a tussock. It's like a fence post, but it's like sod, and like the skis will get caught in them, and you're putting them in reverse, and then you're trying to get through this stuff. It is miserable.
Oh, it sounds like it for
totally
sure.
Miserable.
Last year you guys ran into quite a few mechanicals, and it was a little bit rough. You guys had to end up scratching. What kind of drove you to just taking that last resort and just scratching, and just walk us a little bit through with that?
Yeah, I mean, me and Adam, pretty resilient guys. We'll do whatever it takes to keep these things moving. Like from day 2 on, it seemed like every day we had like some, I wouldn't call it catastrophic issues, but definitely issues that were arising. And you know, I'm going to take the blame for some of it because there's some stuff in the skid that I thought was going to be better, and I probably should have just left it alone. You know, and I'll take the blame for that. We had some bolts that broke, but we had spare bolts with us. But sometimes it's not that easy to just run the broken bolt out and put the new bolt in. So we did have to lay over one night due to some broken bolt issues, which I mean, it causes your repair time and whatnot, but we were able to get it back together and go. And then we ran into some limiter strap issues, just some wear through issues. And if you ever rode a sled without a limiter strap, we did it for 300 miles.
Oh.
And we were nervous because when you don't have the limiter strap, it can overextend the front shock and pull the front shock apart. And so we were kind of being cautious in that regard because we knew the consequences if that were to happen. So I would say throughout the race, there was probably over 1,000 miles we traveled with somewhat of something broken that could be half catastrophic. So we were definitely taking it easy on the sleds because we just wanted to finish it. Like that's why we were there, you know.
And going into it while racing it, what was it's over a 50-hour race. There was the top finishers were 52 to 56 hours. At your estimate, what was your finishing time?
You know, I think I just actually looked at my Garmin last night on the total time accumulated over, I think we ended up scratching at 2,100 and some change. And we were at 67 hours on the gauge, which that isn't really comparable because on the race course they take your time for even when the sled's shut off if you're doing repairs and whatnot, so that's not super accurate. I couldn't tell you exactly because the last section's the hardest. That last 400 is back through the burn, back to the South Fork River. There's a lot of variables in that last section that changed a lot of people's races, so I don't think you can judge that until you finish it. It's just, there's too many variables, you know.
It's kind of one of those things that you gotta work through and kind of just have to finish to even know. So
yeah,
that makes
you
sense.
kind of have to finish to know where you're going to be, which kind of seems how it should be. But it's interesting. But back to what you said about what caused us to scratch to finish that. We were running into some limp mode issues because I guess we were uneducated on the race. It was basically the case. We didn't understand the octane rating up there, and most consumer sleds, when you buy them new, like they're for 91 octane because that's what performance machines take. And up there we were fighting like 87 octane, and we weren't, I guess, like I said, I think we were just undereducated on what we needed to do to do that. So we were running into limp mode issues, like the sled would go to limp mode, and then it would derate, and you had to stop, shut it off, restart it. And I probably started that sled over and over again, I mean, 200 times. It would go limp mode, stop, shut it off, restart. I mean, over and over and over again. And I would say it was just a lack of knowledge on the race course.
And coming from that, was there ever a point in your mind where you asked yourself why you're doing this?
Oh yeah, we stopped. Me and Adam stopped at one of the checkpoints, and there was a commercial airport there in Uniclete, and we took an hour layover to catch our breath. That was the long day. It was going to be like it started at negative 15 degrees and ended at like negative 36, and we did like 500 and so miles. But we wanted to stop about halfway in Uniclete, lay over for an hour, and just regroup, make sure everything's good. And we were at a commercial airport, and I told Adam, I said, dude, we could pull it right now. We could be done and out on a plane. And we looked at each other, and you know what? He's like, yeah, we could, but we're not gonna. So we just kept it going.
Yeah, it definitely, it kind of starts to mind bog you a little bit more. I mean, a lot of this is physical, but also mental, so that just probably was going through your head the entire time. Yeah,
it's definitely a physical race, but yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of hours behind bars, and like, yeah, you definitely got to be in the right headspace, because you can definitely, as remote as it is, it's relatively easy, I would say, to give up and be able to find a way home. It's not that hard. So with that variable, it's like you could just quit any time.
Makes sense, yeah. No, it's definitely a lot challenging, and hey, you guys are there, you guys did it, you guys participated, and you're going back for another year. So walking into this year, how are you going to apply a little bit more of like what you learned last year into this upcoming year?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just getting the ECM right for the fuel that is available. And like a lot of people are like, oh, octane boost or you know, bring your own gas. I don't think people fully understand, like, you can't do that. Like, you get what you get. There's no way you could carry enough octane boost to supplement for the amount of gas you burn. I mean, these sleds are carrying about 15 gallons, and you're going to fill up almost close to every 80 or 100 miles. So you're filling them up multiple times a day. And the main thing is you just got to get the ECU right. And we're going to work hard on that. Hopefully we get snow early season here, and we can get the same gas that they have there here to do a lot of data logging and figuring out the ECU. And I think that is going to be the big game changer. Just, I mean, a sled that runs. Like, you need a sled that runs right to travel all the miles.
Yeah, and then with it being a lot of miles race, is there any kind of like upgrades that you've done to the sled? Because I know that there's some people that just say, I mean, whenever you get like a race sled for snowcross, there are some things that you kind of like gotta manufacture yourself and kind of like get up to that. Just, is there a lot of work to get it like built to where you want to, or are you just kind of just going into it just kind of bare minimum? Like
last year, like I always think, in my eyes, come from dirt bikes, like OE is the best. Like everything original, OE parts, OE bolts is best quality because the manufacturers give you the best stuff possible. And I'll be 100% honest, both mine and Adam's sleds going into Iron Dog were box stock. They didn't have no ECU, they didn't have nothing special. They were a box stock RXC 600. The only thing we did was a front track shock, a little bit of valving, and different spring rate, but everything else was 100% stock besides a studded track and some different skis, just some comfort stuff. But saying that, there's definitely things now that we learned from last year about the chassis and more suspension stuff that we need to work on. And last year we were just cut short. We just had no snow. We tried to go to Michigan. We tried to go to the North Shore to try to figure these things out short notice with lack of snow. And I was able to get 1,000 miles on my sled before we shipped them to Alaska, trying to learn on them. But that goes back to, we only had 2 sleds. We didn't have a set of trainer sleds and then a set of race sleds. So I was like a little gun shy to try things on the race sled because it's the only one I got. So I didn't want to like go crazy and change a bunch of things, because what if I screwed something up? And then I know stock it was going to work. And come to find out, I think for a box stock snowmobile, it did really well for what we're putting it through. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the burn area sounds like it was kind of it beat it up pretty good. So with going over some of that stuff, so I mean that definitely takes a toll out of it. But you got to now use this one for a practice sled before you go up there, and kind of like a test sled before you apply everything to this new one. For sure. Yeah, we're gonna take our old sleds. go through them, figure out, and I've already gone through mine quite a bit and figured out a lot of things about the chassis, and then basically build the sled I wanted to build last year without taking the risk of it not working, so I can train on it, learn on it, and then hopefully log in, if we get snow, 2,000 miles would like on the chassis, on my old chassis, to make sure it's what I want, and then just basically copy paste it on the new one, put 300-400 miles on the new chassis just to make sure all electrical stuff works, everything's going to pan out and run out good, stretch the track. So we'll be basically starting the race with virtually brand new sleds, where last year we were starting the race with 1,200 mile abused snowmobiles, same engine, same clutches, same shocks, everything was the same stuff we were training on.
Yeah, and going into the season as well, you said you built those relationships, and I know that you had to change a little bit on this, and you had to call people right before you went up, and you're like, hey, how do you do this? How was your reaction to kind of finding out some of this stuff of oh, you actually have to do this to get it to work? Yeah,
I mean, all the racers and the people I've talked to, they were pretty good about explaining stuff, and none of it was real crazy. It was just small things that maybe I would have overlooked, just the slides in general. You have the stock slides, which is what comes on the sled, but then there's the Valspar ones, and everyone says the Valspars are the best ones. You got to have them. There wasn't a team out there that didn't run a Valspar. These Valspar slides, they will literally last forever. We put them through 60 miles of just straight dirt, and they look like brand new still. And they were on there from the time I put the sled together new to the end of the race, and that sled's got close to 4,000 miles on it. And it's if you didn't know to do that and you just put a OE stock slide on it, you'd be done. You wouldn't make it 30 miles in the burn and you'd be stuck track. So that, and then a little bit of the fuel system stuff. I kind of had an idea on how it worked, but kind of having an idea isn't good enough. You need to know it's going to work. So like I said, other teams are really willing to help us in that regard.
And going into last season, you have the G8 on your sled, so that definitely is going to help you a lot. There's times where you couldn't even see it all, so just walk us through that as well.
Yeah, I am not super good with GPS. I've never raced where I really needed GPS ever, and I'm not really the only GPS I've ever used is in the mountains, on your phone or something, just giving me a realm of where I'm at in the mountains, because me and Adam are mountain guys for the most part, and then just a little bit of racing. But we were able to get this Garmin G8 that came standard on, or can come standard on an RXC. So we put them in our RXCs, and it's cool, and I didn't realize how cool it was until after I got it. So I'm well, I don't know where to go. This is just all the way across Alaska. I'm how am I supposed to know where I'm going? There's no way I can just go to Alaska and be follow the trail all the way to Nome, So I'm well, maybe I could reach out. So I reached out to some teams, and I knew through talking to other teams that they used, everyone uses Garmin software. And I'm well, that's cool because Arcticat's using Garmin. So that means we don't have to remount some sort of aftermarket Garmin GPS off to the side of the gauge or on the hood somewhere. We could just use the Garmin that's integrated in the dash. So I called Garmin because I was curious what software it uses and what the style of Garmin it was. Because I knew it was a Garmin retrofit to use to get the Arcticat dash, and they use it's called Tread software. It's the Garmin Tread. So I'm well, if all the other teams are using Garmin and they probably have tracks from other years, so I reached out to teams and they were yeah, we have tracks of the course that we logged from years past. And I'm well, what are the odds you give me some tracks? Because I'm going in blind. I'm there's no way I'm just going to go into this course without having some sort of bearing to follow. And most teams I talked to, actually every team I talked to is willing to give up their tracks because they realize how hard it is, and they want people in the sport, I think, from what I understand. So they gave us their tracks. So I was able to take their tracks through a GPX file, and they were able to email them to me, and I was able to take them off my email and download them into my Tread app on my phone. And with the Tread app, it works along with the G8, which is Tread software. So using the Tread app and Bluetoothing to the dash on the snowmobile, you can transfer the tracks right into the G8. So it basically, you zoom out, all the tracks are downloaded in, and now you have a baseline. You have something to follow. But I don't know how I would have done it without it. Because there's times where we're on the open ocean or a bay. I'm not sure if it was an ocean or a bay, but a lot of water, really vast. and it was just wind blowing. Like, you couldn't see 20 feet in front of you. But, like, yeah, you could have a compass and, like, well, maybe you're, like, maybe northeast to this little town on the other side of the bay. But I'm like, well, I'm not that good. So, but having them tracks from previous years, all the teams previous years would go to that town. So I could look down at my GPS, and there was the track that I had saved. And I knew as long as this thing has signal and it follows the track and you're in the right direction, you're going to be good. And it led us all the way across a 60-mile bay of ocean ice, and I was 100% confident with it. And I don't know how I would have been able to get through that situation without having that track. Granted, you could just, like, get your bearings of where you're at in the world and, like, okay, you need to go north and east, but you're not going to always, like, hit dead nuts, you know. And this thing brought us right to town. And in that situation, I'm like, man, this thing was a lifesaver.
In 2022, you ran a couple of cross-country races, but that was on a Polaris. Last year, you chose to ride an Arctic, specifically the Catalyst. What made you guys want to pursue Arctic?
Well, Adam's been a long-time fan, my partner. That's probably the only person I know that'd be willing to do this with me. And he said, well, we gotta go with an Arctic. And I'm not necessarily, like, sub to anything else. Like, it doesn't matter. In my eyes, a snowmobile's got track, 2 skis, handlebars. You know, we'll figure it out. The only thing I was a little gun shy with the new Catalyst chassis, because it was never really tested I'm sure it was tested, obviously, but not in a racing application through the cross-country series because of the lack of snow in the last 2 years. They were racing them on ice, but it's quite a bit different racing them on terrain. So I was a little gun-shy, and then with the state of Arctic at the time, I'm like, well, I guess if that's what you want to do, Adam, I'm okay with it. We'll figure it out. One way or another, we'll make it work. And I thought maybe it would be cool to do it on Arctic because I feel like it's kind of a bit of a minority at the moment. So going in with the Cats, after actually putting my hands on one, and what's crazy is up until the sleds showed up at the race department for us to pick up, I've never even looked at a Catalyst. No idea. I just took Adam's word for it. He said, it'll be good. I'm like, all right, that's fine. So I got the sled home. I was able to unbox it, take a look at it. I'm like, you know what, this thing is probably ain't too bad. It's pretty easy to work on, I come to find out. You know, once you get the hood off and the side panels, like, everything's pretty open, pretty cut and dry, and I think in a race like that, it needs to be cut and dry. It needs to be just simple, able to get to everything, be able to work on it in the field, because if you can't do that and you get in a bind, you could be done. You could be scratching or stranded. There's that too, like, if you break down 40 miles out, like, you're out there 40 miles from everything. So once getting the sled opened up and looking at it, I'm like, yeah, this thing, I can work with this.
And the funny thing is that coming from a person that never looked at it, you guys are the only Arctic duo that made it the farthest. So that was kind of an accomplishment in itself too, with learning about this chassis itself. Yeah,
it was exciting. It was exciting to make it as far as we did with them, seeming that they've never really been train raced, especially to that extent. And these sleds aren't made to have this extra weight. I mean, we're carrying tools, extra A-arms, extra gas, the lighting system. So, like, these sleds are weighted down a lot more than what they're usually, usually normal consumers not going to be weighing down the sled as much as we are. And, like, putting all these different weird apparatuses on it to make it go down the race. Like, there's like a fuel tank out the back, so there's a lot of weight out the back. It's just, the chassis isn't made to have all this weight hanging off it. So for us to make it that far, and even with the issues we had, we're pretty stoked on it, especially, like you said, being the only Arctic Cats that made it to Nome and made it, I guess, 3/4 of the way, scratching at 2,100 miles. And like, the scratch wasn't due to the sled. It was due to us not having the knowledge we needed on the course.
While you're racing, there's times that you can go as long as you possibly want. You can start from one point and just go until you reach one of those mandatory checkpoints, but there's times that it's 14, 16 hours on a sled, but then you're also dealing with the conditions. But some of those checkpoints that you do want to stop at, there's nothing there besides a gas pump or an occasional place where you can go sit inside. You can't lounge around, you can't really take a nap, so just walk us through that.
Yeah, so the lodging situation is interesting. From what I understand, and I probably don't quite understand it perfectly, but when you leave Big Lake, there's like, between Big Lake and Nome, there's one mandatory checkpoint, and it's in Kotzebue, and you got to make it there by, I think it was Tuesday by midnight or something, but there's no, like, rules or way to do it. You could leave Big Lake and ride straight through to Kotzebue, and I think it would be like 1,000 miles or something like that. But that's not the best way to do it, because if you're off the clock ain't rolling. So if you can run like I think we had it spaced out to be like a 480-ish mile day every day, and if you could run hard for 480 miles, take a break, rest at one of the checkpoints, or which would be a booking ideally, then you could make your best runs in them stints. But in the situation where you have a breakdown issue and you don't make your day, like then it sets you back a bit. So like if our day was like a 480 mile day, we wanted to get to Unalakleet, we didn't. We made it to Galena, we were broke down, we had to lay over, we had to wait for parts. So the small gas station thing, we take like an hour layover, decide what we're gonna do. We ended up realizing we're not going to be able to fix it today, it's going to have to be tomorrow. So we were able to find, there was this young kid at the fuel stop, a villager, and he's like, oh, you guys can stay at our lodge. I'm like, great, that'll work. If that's what it takes, that'll work. And he was able to help us out and find somewhere to stay for the night. And he actually helped us find a garage to work on it the next day, and he ended up being a big part of our success, for sure. But that sets you back. So like we were like 120-ish miles from Unalakleet where we wanted to end that day. Well, now it sets us back for the next day, and we have to make it to Kotzebue. And so it gets you in a bit of a bind where now you're going to be forced to run a long day, and there's really no way around it. So that day tended to be one of the coldest days, but it was a blue sky day and it was clear. So starting the day, I think it was like 15-ish below when we got the sled from the fuel stop to bring it to get repaired on the clock. So we get it to the point of being repaired, we get back on the course, and it just slowly got colder that day. It was like 15 below, 20 below. We ended the day at 36 below. I think we traveled 560-ish miles. I guess I wasn't super concerned about the cold, because I can see where I'm going. Like I like to be able to, clear vision, the cold, we can figure that out. But we ended up using fly racing for our gear, and I don't know, that stuff is a miracle. We were running the same gear set from the day we left Big Lake on a 30-degree day with the vents open to just adding one more mid-layer and closing the vents for that 36 below day. And it's amazing how good the gear can be, where you can ride the same gear in two totally different weather situations. And in this race, that stuff really matters, because the swings in temperatures, like I said, 2 days before was 30, and 2 days after that it was 36 below. And you can't just carry a bunch of extra gear. You don't have gear stashed at these checkpoints. It's like you're really on your own. You only got what you got. So that was pretty impressive. I was pretty impressed with the gear.
And then I bet it gets a little bit difficult, especially say if you were to break down, bolt breaks, something happens. It's a 30-degree day. You have to be A, mechanically inclined, and B, you have to be able to feel your fingers. So that seems like it's a little bit tough as well.
Definitely want to be able to feel your fingers. It was funny. We came into one fuel stop, and I think it was probably 0-ish degrees, and we were running the mitts, and then these got hand warmers, and I was actually wearing a pair of fly racing just motocross gloves, because the mitts are really good and the hand warmers are really good. And actually, I don't know, I tend to just be a warmer person, I think, because my hand warmers are probably on like the first setting, like they weren't, because you don't want to be sweating, you just want to be like that perfect temperature. And I came to the fuel stop, and there was an Alaskan racer, and I had my gloves on. I just walked in the fuel stop. He's like, "Are you wearing motocross gloves?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Are you freezing?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "We're from northern Minnesota. It probably gets colder there than it does in Alaska." So yeah, gear joist definitely important. But yeah, you don't want a big glove. Big gloves are tough, for me anyways.
And then also, you've been telling all these stories. What is your top tier story, your absolute favorite from this whole entire experience that you've had to endure?
I would say not the days we're having problems, and we're not the good days. But the day we got set back and had to ride from Galena to Kotzebue was probably the best day. It was like a 500-some mile day. The sleds are running good. It was cold. It was freezing cold, but it was just the best day because we have no issues. It was just like a clean sailing day. Everything was running good. We were in good spirits, and I think we were making time. And we were able to catch back up to where we needed to be in one day without being set back. So I think by far that was the best day.